Commander Li Jinwu rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the massive holographic display floating above the command center floor. The alien transmission had been playing on repeat for 72 hours straight, and each time it sent chills down his spine. The voice speaking was clearly not human, with strange clicks and musical tones that their translation software barely managed to convert into understandable words. "Please, anyone who can hear this message, we are dying," the alien voice pleaded through the speakers. "The Void Swarm has consumed the Altair system. Vega Prime is silent. Our homeworlds burn while we hide in the shadows of dead stars." Lieutenant Park So-jin looked up from her monitoring station, her face pale under the blue glow of her screens. "Commander, the signal strength is dropping again. Whatever's transmitting, this is running out of power." Jinwoo walked closer to the main display, watching in horror as red zones spread across the star map like a deadly infection. Each red dot represented an entire solar system that had gone silent in the past few months. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Something was systematically destroying civilizations across this sector of the galaxy. "Show me the Coalition members again," Jinwoo ordered. The display shifted, revealing 7 different alien species. The Kepler Coalition had been a peaceful alliance for over 3 centuries. There were the tall, graceful Lumians, with their crystalline cities floating in gas-giant atmospheres. The underground-dwelling Terak, master engineers who could build cities inside asteroids. The aquatic Hydros who lived in the ocean worlds of their star system. 4 other races, each unique, each now facing total extinction. "Sir, we're getting more fragments," reported Sergeant Kim Min-ae from the communications array. "They're describing the enemy. It's not what we expected." The transmission crackled to life again, this time with video feed. Jinwoo's blood ran cold as he watched organic-looking ships that seemed to be alive, writhing through space like massive sea creatures. These weren't traditional spacecraft with metal hulls and engine trails. They were something else entirely. Biomechanical, horrors that pulsed with sickly green light. "The swarm doesn't just destroy," the alien voice continued desperately. "It consumes everything. Our worlds, our ships, our people. It learns from what it devours and grows stronger. We've tried everything: negotiation, evacuation, even surrendering. Entire colonies hoping it would spare the rest. But it never stops, it never shows mercy." Lieutenant Park So-jin's console beeped urgently. "Commander, I'm detecting massive energy signatures moving toward the Coalition's last stronghold. Whatever this void swarm is, it's about to finish them off." Jinwoo felt his heart pounding as he realized what they were witnessing, the final moments of 7 entire civilizations. Billions of lives about to be snuffed out, while Earth sat safely thousands of light years away, completely unknown to both the Coalition and their destroyers. The transmission became more broken, filled with static and desperate voices speaking, in languages their computers couldn't translate, but the emotion was universal, pure terror mixed with fading hope. "Anyone out there? Please respond. We know there are other civilizations in this galaxy. If you can hear this, we beg you. Help us." The command center fell silent, except for the soft humming of computers and life support systems. Every officer and technician stood frozen, staring at the display showing the slow extinction of species they'd never heard of until 3 days ago. That's when Admiral Kim Do-hyun walked onto the command deck. The old warrior moved with purpose, his weathered face set in grim determination. He'd been in emergency meetings with Earth's government, the United Colonies Council, and military leadership for the past day and night. "What's the situation, Commander?" Admiral Kim asked quietly. "The Coalition has maybe 6 hours before their last defensive line falls," Jinwoo reported. "Their message is weakening. I don't think they'll be able to transmit much longer." "Admiral..." Kim studied the tactical display, watching the red zones of destruction creep closer to the Coalition's final positions. His jaw tightened as he absorbed the scale of the catastrophe unfolding in distant space. "Sir, the politicians are still debating," Lieutenant Park So-jin said carefully. "The Galactic Council wants to observe and assess before taking any action. They're saying we don't know enough about either side to get involved." Admiral Kim's eyes blazed with anger. "Observe and assess while entire species get wiped out. while children cry for help and nobody answers? He turned to face the entire command center, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Prep all communication channels. I want every ship captain, every base commander, every colonial defense force to hear this. Sir, what are your orders? Jinwoo asked, though he could already see the answer in the Admiral's determined expression. We mobilize everything, Admiral Kim declared. Every ship that can fly, every weapon that can fire, every human brave enough to answer a stranger's call for help. The politicians can debate all they want, but I won't let genocide happen on my watch. The command center erupted into controlled chaos as officers began implementing the largest military mobilization in human history. Captain Choi Min-ho pressed his palm against the reinforced viewing window of the dreadnought Defiance, watching. In amazement, as ship after ship materialized from hyperspace jumps around Lunar Station. In his 20 years of military service, he had never witnessed anything close to this scale of mobilization. Captain, we've got incoming vessels from the Martian Defense Fleet, reported navigator Yoon Ha-na, her eyes wide as she tracked the newcomers on her screen. 12 heavy cruisers and their escort frigates just dropped out of hyperspace on Vector 7. The massive battleship Courage dominated the center of the formation, its kilometer-long hull bristling with plasma cannons and missile pods. Captain Choi had served aboard that legendary vessel during the Titan Rebellion, and seeing it again brought back memories of humanity's capacity for warfare when pushed to the limit. Look at that, whispered Communications Officer Lee Tae-min, pointing toward a group of sleek vessels approaching from the asteroid belt. The Jupiter Mining Consortium sent their entire security fleet. Those aren't even military ships, but they're loaded with mining lasers that could punch through battleship armor. What truly amazed Captain Choi was watching civilian vessels streaming in from every corner of human space. Cargo haulers had welded weapon mounts to their hulls. Luxury cruise liners carried hastily installed shield generators. Even university research ships arrived with experimental weapons that their professors had been developing in secret labs. The carriers Victory and Honor launched their fighter squadrons in perfect formation, creating a deadly cloud of small craft that could swarm enemy vessels like angry hornets. Each fighter was piloted by humans who had volunteered to fly into unknown space against an enemy they knew nothing about, except that it was destroying innocent civilizations. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the cargo ship, Free Trader, Yoon Ha-na reported with a slight smile. They're requesting permission to join the combat formation. Their captain says they've mounted railguns where the cargo pods used to be. Captain Choi shook his head in wonder. The Free Trader was a civilian merchant vessel that normally carried supplies between colonies. Now its crew of 12 had turned their peaceful ship into a makeshift warship ready to fight and die for aliens they'd never met. Lieutenant Commander Park Ji-hoon approached from the tactical station carrying a datapad with fleet status reports. Sir, the numbers are incredible. We have 3,000 ships total. That includes 800 military vessels, 1,200 corporate security ships, and over 1,000 civilian volunteers who refused to stay behind. The bridge crew fell silent as they absorbed that information. 3,000 ships represented nearly half of humanity's entire space-capable fleet. It was an unprecedented commitment of resources and lives, all for a species that didn't even know humans existed. Captain, the orbital construction yards are launching their defensive platforms, reported sensor specialist Kim So-young. They've mounted them on thruster units to make them mobile. Even our space stations want to join. The fight. Through the viewport, Captain Choi watched as massive industrial platforms that normally built starships slowly maneuvered into formation. These weren't designed for combat, but human engineers had worked around the clock to mount weapons on anything that could move through space. The most impressive sight was the arrival of the experimental fusion core destroyers from the Research and Development Command. These sleek, angular ships represented humanity's cutting-edge military technology, each one capable of generating enough power to supply an entire city. Their fusion drives left brilliant blue trails as they took their positions in the fleet formation. Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies, Lee Tae-min announced. The Centauri Defense Force is sending everything they have. Even the rim worlds are contributing patrol boats and system defense craft. Captain Choi felt a surge of pride as he realized what he was witnessing. This wasn't just Earth's fleet. It was humanity's fleet. Colonists who had been fighting for independence just months ago were now volunteering their ships and lives for a cause that had nothing to do with human politics or territory. Admiral Kim Do-hyun's voice suddenly echoed across every communication channel in the massive fleet. The old admiral's words carried the weight of command and the passion of someone who truly believed in what they were about to do. Attention all vessels. In 1 hour we will jump to hyperspace and begin the longest journey in human history. We're not going to claim territory or resources. We're not going to establish colonies or trade routes. We go because someone asked for help, and that's what humans do. The admiral's voice grew stronger, reaching every crew member on every ship. Some of you are career military. Others are merchants, miners, researchers, and civilians who've never fired a weapon in anger. But today we are all united by a simple truth. When good people face extinction, other good people don't stand by and watch. Captain Choi felt goosebumps on his arms as 3,000 ships began powering up their hyperspace drives simultaneously. The space around Lunar Station filled with swirling energy patterns as reality itself prepared to bend under the force of humanity's largest fleet. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, Yoon Hana announced, her voice barely containing her excitement. Then let's go answer their call, Captain Choi said quietly. 3,000 ships vanished into hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to a stranger's desperate cry for help. The swirling vortex of hyperspace collapsed around the human fleet as 3,000 ships suddenly materialized in the Kepler system. What greeted them was a scene of absolute horror that made even veteran warriors freeze in shock. Captain Choi Min-ho gripped the arms of his command chair as the Defiance shuddered from nearby explosions. The Coalition's last planet hung before them like a dying ember, its surface covered in spreading patches of sickly green corruption. Massive organic structures were growing across continents like cancerous tumors, consuming cities and forests alike. "Dear God," whispered Navigator Yoon Hana, her face pale as she stared at the tactical display. "Those aren't ships. They're alive." The void swarm vessels writhed through space like enormous sea creatures, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with veins of toxic light. Some were as large as human battleships, while others stretched for kilometers like cosmic serpents. They moved with predatory intelligence, hunting down the few remaining Coalition ships that desperately tried to evacuate survivors from the dying world. "Coalition vessels, this is Admiral Kim Do-hyun of the Terran Fleet," the Admiral's voice boomed across all frequencies. "We received your distress call. We're here to help." For a moment, the communication channels fell silent, except for the crackle of energy weapons and the screams of dying ships. Then a voice responded, speaking in accented but understandable English, filled with disbelief and desperate hope. "Impossible. How did you cross the void so quickly? Bless the stars, they actually came. Unknown vessels. We are the last survivors of the Kepler Coalition. Our defenses have failed. The swarm has consumed everything." Captain Choi didn't wait for formal orders. "All weapons, target the nearest swarm cluster. Fire at will." The Defiance erupted in a symphony of destruction as plasma cannons, rail, guns and missile batteries opened fire simultaneously. Brilliant streams of energy lanced across space, striking the writhing alien creatures and causing them to convulse in apparent pain. But instead of exploding like normal ships, the damaged swarm vessels began to regenerate, their organic hulls flowing like liquid to seal the wounds. "Captain, our weapons are having limited effect," reported Weapons Officer Kim Jae-sung. "These things heal faster than we can damage them." That's when Lieutenant Colonel Shin Woo-jin's voice crackled over the fighter command frequency. "All squadrons, follow my lead. We're going in close and personal." 200 human fighters streaked away from their carrier ships like a swarm of metallic wasps, diving into the maze of organic swarm vessels. The alien creatures were massive and powerful, but they moved with the slow, deliberate motions of deep-sea predators. Human fighters, designed for quick strikes and evasive maneuvers, began dancing between the writhing tentacles and biomechanical appendages. "Dragon Squadron, target those nerve clusters along the hull," Shin Woo-jin commanded as his fighter rolled between two massive tentacles that tried to crush him. If these things are alive, they've got to have weak points. The fighters opened fire with precision weapons, targeting what appeared to be sensory organs and neural pathways running along the creature's surfaces. This time, the swarm vessels screamed, an actual sound that transmitted through space by some unknown means, chilling every human who heard it. Meanwhile, Commander Yunda-un coordinated the rescue operations with military precision. Transport? Teams. We've got coalition evacuation ships trapped near the planet's moon. Heavy cruisers. Provide cover while we extract survivors. The human fleet moved like a well-orchestrated dance of destruction and salvation. Heavy battleships engaged the largest swarm creatures in brutal close-range combat, their armor scarred by acidic bioweapons that tried to eat through their hulls. Cruisers and destroyers formed protective screens around coalition evacuation vessels, many of which were filled with alien civilians who had never seen humans before. Captain Choi watched in amazement as a coalition ship, a graceful, crystalline vessel that looked more like a work of art than a spacecraft, limped toward human lines with its hull cracked and bleeding some kind of luminous fluid. Defiance. "This is Coalition Vessel Harmony," came a musical voice over the comm. "We have 3,000 Lumian refugees aboard. Our engines are failing." "Understood, Harmony." "We're sending tugs to assist," Captain Choi responded immediately. Then turned to his crew. "Get those people to safety. I don't care if we have to strap their ship to our hull." The aliens watched in stunned silence as human ships that had never seen their species before risked everything to save them. Transport vessels designed to carry cargo were hastily converted into refugee ships. Medical frigates opened their doors to alien wounded, even though human doctors had no idea how to treat their injuries. Lieutenant Colonel Shin Woo-jin's fighters had discovered that concentrated fire on the swarm's neural pathways could temporarily paralyze the creatures. "All units, these things have distributed nervous systems. Hit every glowing node you can find." The battle raged for hours, with humans adapting their tactics on the fly. They learned that the swarm creatures communicated through some kind of biological network, so disrupting their coordination could confuse entire groups. Human engineers began modifying their weapons to emit frequencies that interfered with the creatures' bioelectric systems. What amazed the coalition survivors most was watching humans protect alien evacuation ships with their own vessels, taking damage meant for strangers they'd met only hours ago. When a massive swarm creature wrapped its tentacles around a coalition hospital ship, 3 human destroyers rammed into it simultaneously, their crews singing Earth battle songs as they tore the monster apart from the inside. "How are they so fearless?" asked a coalition commander over the comm. "They fight like the safety of our children matters more than their own lives." The answer came from every human action in that desperate battle. Sometimes the right thing to do is also the hardest thing to do. Admiral Kim Do-hyun stared at the holographic battle display in his command center, watching red icons representing human casualties multiply with each passing minute. The Indomitable's bridge hummed with urgent activity as staff officers coordinated the desperate fight, but the news kept getting worse. "Sir, we've lost the cruiser, Valor, and her entire escort squadron," reported Chief of Staff Colonel Yu, Minjung, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "The swarm creatures just absorbed the wreckage and grew larger." The Admiral rubbed his weathered face, feeling the weight of 3,000 ships and their crews on his shoulders. For 6 hours, the human fleet had thrown everything they had at the void swarm, but the biomechanical monsters kept regenerating faster than they could be destroyed. Worse, each destroyed human ship seemed to feed the creatures, making them stronger and more aggressive. "The coalition weapon," Admiral Kim asked quietly. "How much time do they need?" Lieutenant Commander Bae Sora looked up from her console, monitoring communications with the alien survivors. "The Lumian scientists say their quantum disruptor needs 30 minutes to charge, but they need a clear path to the swarm's central nervous cluster. The bioships are protecting it with everything they have." Through the viewport, Admiral Kim watched as a human destroyer exchanged fire with a creature that looked like a massive jellyfish made of metal and flesh. The ship's weapons carved deep wounds in the alien monster, but within minutes, the damage healed itself while acidic bioweapons ate through the destroyer's armor plating. Captain Park Junseo stepped forward from the tactical station, his young face grim with determination. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the swarm's defensive patterns. They're clustering their largest creatures around what appears to be a central command organism. If we could break through that protective shell—" "Our weapons can't penetrate their regeneration rate," Admiral Kim interrupted. "We've tried everything." "Not everything, sir," Captain Park said quietly. "We could ram them. Full speed, maximum impact. Create enough chaos to open a gap for the coalition weapon." The bridge fell silent, except for the distant sounds of battle and the hum of life support systems. Every officer understood what Captain Park was suggesting, a suicide run that would destroy the attacking ships and kill everyone aboard. "Captain, you're talking about sending our people to certain death," Colonel Yu said, her voice shaking. "I'm talking about giving those alien refugees a chance to live," Captain Park replied firmly, "and stopping this swarm before it spreads to other systems, including ours." Admiral Kim closed his eyes, seeing the faces of the thousands of humans under his command. Young pilots who had volunteered for this mission, veteran crew members with families back home, civilian captains who had converted their cargo ships into makeshift warships. All of them had come here knowing the risks, but asking them to die in a coordinated suicide attack was something else entirely. That's when the communication system crackled to life with an unexpected transmission. It was Captain Lee Dong-wook of the damaged cruiser Persistence, his ship listing badly after losing half its hull to a swarm creature's acid attack. "Admiral, my ship is done for anyway. Engines failing, life support critical. My crew and I volunteer to make the first run." Before Admiral Kim could respond, other voices joined in. Captain Han Ye-sul from the mining ship Iron Mountain, Commander Oh Tai-yang from the research vessel Discovery. One by one, the captains of humanity's most damaged ships volunteered for what they all knew was a one-way mission. "Sir," Captain Park said softly, "they're not asking for orders. They're asking for permission to do what they came here to do." The coalition channels suddenly burst with frantic alien voices, their translation software working overtime to convert the musical tones and clicks into understandable words. "Human fleet, please reconsider. There must be another way. We cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves for our survival." Admiral Kim activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice reaching every human ship in the battle zone. "This is Admiral Kim to all vessels. What we're about to do goes against every military doctrine, every survival instinct, every rational thought, but sometimes being human means doing the impossible for the right reasons." He paused, watching, as more damaged ships moved into attack formation. "Any crew that wants to evacuate to other vessels has 5 minutes. No one will think less of you. This is purely voluntary." The response amazed even the veteran admiral. Instead of evacuation pods launching from the volunteer ships, more vessels moved to join the attack formation. The cargo hauler, Free Trader, took position alongside military cruisers. University research ships aligned with corporate security vessels. Humanity's diverse fleet united in purpose. Captain Lee Dong-wook's voice came over the comm one last time, barely audible through his ship's failing systems. "For those alien children we evacuated earlier, for their future, the damaged human." Ships accelerated toward the swarm's central cluster, their crews singing everything from ancient Earth folk songs to modern colonial anthems. The Persistence struck first, her remaining nuclear missiles detonating inside a massive creature's body cavity. The Iron Mountain followed, her mining lasers carving deep into another bioship before the explosion tore both vessels apart. One by one, 23 human ships died in brilliant flashes of light and metal, each sacrifice tearing holes in the swarm's protective formation. The bio-creatures writhed in apparent confusion as their perfect defensive pattern collapsed into chaos. "Now," Admiral Kim shouted, "Coalition weapon, you have your opening." Commander Lee Soo-min piloted her stealth bomber through the gap created by her comrade's sacrifice, the Coalition's quantum disruptor tucked in her bomb bay like humanity's final hope. Swarm creatures reached for her with grasping tentacles, but she danced between them with skill born of desperation and determination. The quantum disruptor deployed directly into the swarm's central nervous cluster, a weapon designed by the Coalition's greatest scientists to disrupt bioelectric networks across vast distances. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. Every swarm creature in the system suddenly went rigid, their pulsing lights flickering and dying. The massive bioships that had seemed invincible moments before now drifted through space like empty shells, their hive minds shattered beyond repair. In the sudden silence that followed, only one sound could be heard across all communication channels: the grateful tears of 7 alien species who had just watched humanity save their civilizations at the cost of hundreds of human lives. Ambassador Han Yejin adjusted her formal diplomatic uniform as she walked through the magnificent halls of the Coalition Grand Assembly. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Kepler, and the universe had transformed in ways no one could have imagined. The crystal walls around her pulsed with soft, harmonious light, a Lumian architectural feature that responded to the emotions of those within the building. Today, they glowed with warmth and hope. "Ambassador, the Council is ready for you," announced Councillor Vextar, a tall Terrak whose rocky, mineral-based skin sparkled under the ambient lighting. His species had lived underground for millennia, but now they worked alongside humans to build impossible structures that reached toward the stars. As Han Yejin entered the massive council chamber, she marveled at the sight before her. Representatives from all 7 coalition species sat in a perfect circle, but now there were 8 chairs, with Earth's symbol proudly displayed on gleaming metal and stone. The coalition speaker, a graceful Lumian whose translucent body contained swirling galaxies of light, rose to address the assembly. "Today we formally welcome humanity into our alliance, but first we must acknowledge what you have given us." Holographic displays materialized around the chamber, showing the gifts that had flowed between civilizations since the battle. Human. Medical technology was already saving lives across dozens of worlds, while coalition quantum computers had revolutionized Earth's scientific research. Terrak engineers worked with human architects to design space stations that seemed to grow rather than be built. Hydros agricultural techniques were transforming the hydroponic farms of Mars and Europa. "The technology sharing has been remarkable," Han Yejin said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "But what matters most is what we've learned from each other about what it means to be truly civilized." The speaker nodded, their light patterns shifting to display what humans had learned to recognize as deep emotion. "Before your arrival, we believed civilization meant achieving peace and prosperity for our own people. We thought wisdom meant careful deliberation and measured responses to threats." Around the chamber, alien representatives from worlds that had been saved by human intervention nodded in agreement. Many of them had families alive today only because human ships had risked everything to evacuate them from dying worlds. "But you showed us something different," the speaker continued. "You showed us that true civilization means being willing to sacrifice for strangers. That real strength comes from helping those who cannot help themselves, that sometimes the right decision is not the safe decision." Han Yejin felt tears forming in her eyes as she remembered the 23 ships that had made the ultimate sacrifice. Their names were now carved into monuments on every coalition world, honored alongside the greatest heroes in galactic history. "We have established new protocols," announced Elder Zethkra of the aquatic Hydros, her voice carrying the musical quality of her ocean-dwelling people. "The Terran doctrine now guides all coalition policy. When any civilization sends a distress call, we respond immediately. No debate, no committees, no political calculations, we go." The chamber erupted in harmonious sounds that served as applause among the various species. But Han Yejin knew the real changes went far deeper than military policy. Through the chamber's transparent walls, she could see the bustling activity of New Harmony Station, the first joint human coalition space city. Human children ran through corridors alongside young Lumians whose bodies sparkled with joy. Terrak youngsters played zero-gravity games with human teenagers, their rocky features animated with laughter. In the hydroponic gardens, Hydros farmers taught Earth botanists how to grow crops that could survive in any environment. Captain Choi, Minho now promoted to Admiral, approached Han Yejin with a datapad containing the latest reports from across human space. "Ambassador, the integration is happening faster than anyone expected. We've got joint exploration missions launching to 12 different star systems. Human Coalition medical centers are opening on frontier worlds, and the cultural exchange programs are completely overbooked. But the most remarkable change was visible in the Coalition species themselves. Where once they had been cautious and defensive, they now actively sought out civilizations that might need help. Coalition ships carried human-designed emergency supplies to disaster zones. Joint rescue fleets stood ready to respond to any crisis in their sector of the galaxy. "There's something else," Admiral Choi said quietly, handing Han Yejin a special communication device. "We've detected 17 different civilizations trying to contact us. Word is spreading about what happened at Kepler. They want to know about this alliance that actually keeps its promises." Han Yejin smiled as she watched a group of human and alien engineers working together to design a new class of hospital ship, one that could transform into a defensive fortress if needed, embodying humanity's philosophy of hoping for the best while preparing for the worst. In the distance, Admiral Kim Do-hyun stood with a group of coalition military leaders, planning joint training exercises that would prepare their combined fleets for whatever threats might emerge from the deep galaxy. The old warrior had found his purpose in teaching alien species that sometimes peace required the willingness to fight for it. The most touching sight was in the station's memorial garden, where families from 8 different species came to honor those who had died in the battle. Human names were inscribed alongside alien symbols, remembered not as foreigners or strangers, but as heroes who had given their lives for the future of all civilizations. "You know what the most amazing part is?" Han Yejin said to Admiral Choi as they watched children from across the galaxy playing together in perfect harmony. "We didn't just save the Coalition, we saved ourselves. Before Kepler, humanity was divided by politics and borders. Now we're united by something bigger than ourselves." The Coalition speaker approached them, their light patterns warm with gratitude. "Ambassador, there is one more thing. We have detected signals from the far reaches of the galaxy, other species in distress, other civilizations facing extinction from unknown threats." Han Yejin felt the familiar stirring of purpose that had driven humanity across impossible distances to answer a stranger's cry for help. "When do we leave?" The speaker's patterns shifted to what humans had learned was their expression of joy. "The fleet assembles at dawn. 8 species united in purpose, ready to answer the call." As Han Yejin looked out at the stars through the station's viewing ports, she realized that humanity had found something more valuable than advanced technology or new worlds to colonize. They had found their place in the galaxy not as conquerors or traders, but as protectors of those who needed protection. The universe would never be the same, and that was exactly how it should be. The end.